Welcome everyone to a new episode of Retro Encounter. As always, I'm Josh Curry. With me is Mike Sollosi.
Hey everyone.
It's just the two of us again. It's been a while.
We can make it if we try, Josh.
I heard that, we were supposed to talk about The World Ends With You. But it seems like whenever we just get the two of us on the mics, we really just talk about Blizzard's games, so it's not BlizzCon yet, so it seems a little early. I don't know why.
Yeah, the last time it was the Josh and Mike show was the Blizzard Encounter episode from the fall, and I kind of wouldn't mind talking about Blizzard stuff instead of The World Ends With You, but, I mean, it's right there. It's right there on the title of the episode. We probably should just stick to the plan.
The World Ends With You is not that bad.
I didn't say it was bad. I just said maybe I would prefer to talk about Blizzard games. Like, maybe I'm playing Diablo 3 right now. You don't know.
You probably are. Do I have to pull up Battle.net and check?
No, you don't have to. I'm not. But so The World Ends With You. We should probably mention that you have been a fan of this game for some time.
This is one of my favorite games of all time.
Right. And I tried playing it 5 or 6 years ago. It wasn't right when it came out. It was like it had been out for at least a year, and I really didn't like it when I first played it. And so these episodes on The World Ends With You are going to be basically an opportunity for me to give the game a second chance, see if I can get over my biases and over my prejudices and learn to like this game, if not love it necessarily, and just, maybe I'm less bad at stuff than I was 6 years ago.
You mean you're finally good at video games?
I didn't say that. But let's talk about The World Ends With You.
Yeah, I'm maybe you don't remember, but why did you not enjoy it when you played it back in the day?
I think it was a function of a couple different things at once. First, I think the game was oversold to me a little bit. Like, people were telling me, "Oh, this is the best DS RPG. It's one of my favorite games ever," and so my expectations were maybe a little too high. And then only playing the very beginning, my immediate thoughts were just everyone is just dressed terribly, and this is weird Tetsuya Nomura Kingdom Hearts terrible costumes BS. And a very early encounter in the game, I think probably like might have been the boss of the second day or thereabouts. I just like died 3 times in a row, and I'm like, well, everything about this game sucks. And then I just I owned it. I bought a copy of it and didn't get rid of it. So I basically just I lost poorly early on and thought that the game looked dumb, and maybe I did not, and I definitely didn't see where people were coming from when they were saying how excellent of a game it was. But this, go ahead.
To get ready for this, I played this. I think I played through this game 3 or 4 times. Like I love this game. But it was always easy back in the day. Like it hit me. I don't know why, but it hit me perfectly at the time, and I just rode that wave throughout the whole game, and it always brings that great feeling when I go back to it. But I knew that you had a lot of issues with it when you had tried playing it the first time. And it's been easily 5 years since I've played it. And so I tried to change my mindset of come in really, really impartial, ignore why I love this game so much, and try to see where's Mike not going to enjoy this. Right. And I kind of thought about it, and I think The World Ends With You does a really terrible job putting what it's great at the forefront at the beginning of the game.
It's not exactly the strongest first impression. And one thing that I hate that people tell me sometimes is, oh, the game doesn't get good until 4 hours in, or you really got to play the first several hours before it gets good. Something I hate things like that. It's like you're telling me to waste time before I can start enjoying something.
And I don't think it's not good at the beginning. I just think it's difficult. Mm-hmm. We're going to touch on the combat system in a little bit, but the combat system at the beginning can be very overwhelming. There's just a lot going on.
Yeah, it's like the there's sort of a high initial difficulty curve.
Yeah,
it takes getting used to.
And definitely when we first came out with the DS, we were all still trying to figure out how to play with styluses, and it's this is only with the stylus basically. And
the DS had been out for several years by the time this came out.
See, but when I felt like, with the exception of this and then the Zelda games, I didn't play games with the stylus. I might like tap on things or like do a puzzle like in Professor Layton or something, but for the most part, I didn't actually engage in movement, combat, and playing of a game. And I thought that was one of the great things about like Spirit Tracks and Phantom Hourglass for Zelda, and then by
I hate
extension,
Phantom Hourglass.
well, I love Phantom Hourglass,
I
except for that you play the same dungeon 100 times.
Yeah, the reason, yeah, that what was it, Temple of the Ocean King or something? That
I don't know. I hate
like
that
yeah,
temple.
that I hated the one that you had to play over and over and do a different and just do one extra floor each time.
Yeah,
That's why I
complete
stopped playing it.
complete side note. They took a fantastic game that was Phantom Hourglass, ruined it with one dungeon, and then made Spirit Tracks. Took some of the best parts of Phantom Hourglass and diluted those, but then made you so you had multiple dungeons. I was like, you guys need to like merge the goodness of each of these games, and you'd have a fantastic DS game.
Yeah, I never tried Spirit Tracks, but yeah, Phantom Hourglass definitely had its strong suits and then its deal breaker in that stupid dungeon. Anyway, we're off track,
No,
but
no, no.
I basically agree with you that like stylus controls for action games on the DS are uneven. Like most of the DS action games I really like your New Super Mario Brothers or your Castlevania games, basically have you control the game with the game pads and just have the touchscreen functionality be peripheral stuff or things
Right.
like an item menu or reading a map or something. And the DS is good for those kind of experiences, but there's a lot of interesting control stuff in the various DS action games. Like I when I think of DS of good use of the DS pad controls, I mostly think of adventure games that let you like explore a space with a touch screen easily, like your Phoenix Wrights,
Right.
or like you mentioned before, puzzle games and rhythm games like your Professor Layton or your Elite Beat Agents. But yeah, this level of stylus control for an action game is a little weird. And even now, I mean, I'm sort of in the middle of day 7 of week 1 of The World Ends With You right now, and I'm still not landing attacks with swipes as perfectly as I'd like to be. And like switching between attacking with Neku and moving him around to dodge falling cars or whatever is still not something I've quite mastered. And I'm definitely better at the combat and more comfortable with the game than I was when I first played this game 6 years ago. It's still a learning process. I'm far from mastered this yet.
Yeah. And then you add in the fact that there is a second character on the top screen that you can, if you'd like to, control, which is, I feel like it takes a beautiful mind to be able to concentrate on both and actually, if you do a good job with both. So hopefully, did you actually try to control both at the same time?
Yeah, I had it set to mid for a while, and I would sort of just follow the bouncing green light between Neku and what's her face with
Shiki?
yeah Shiki. And but it's still bad. I eventually switched to I think it was like the fast setting
Yes.
where it Shiki starts auto attacking sooner. Because whenever I controlled Shiki, it just felt like I was mashing left or right most of the time.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, where's the enemy? Attack, 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 attack. Okay, back to Neku, who I actually can control with more comfort and precision. But
So,
like, and to that point, I almost wish it wasn't. I think that the two zones thing feels really forced. Like they're using two. This is another thing I don't like about a lot of DS games. Maybe they're just using this two screen combat where you switch between your main character and your support character just for the sake of it being two screen combat. I think it may have worked better if you're only controlling Neku. But because I most of the time I have Shiki doing auto attacks for me.
so I'll be really interested to see what you say by the end, well, during the next recording, because I think Shiki, first of all, is the weakest combat character that you play with.
Right.
She also, I think, is the hardest to control, and there is definitely. I remember even during my first playthrough, I tried really hard at the beginning. I could not figure it out. I ignored the top character for the longest time, and then it slowly brought it back in. And by the end of the game, I was actually actively playing with both characters. And there's like at some point there's just like a switch goes off in your head, and I feel like you actually break. Like it's not actually you learn anything and you're better. I think something breaks inside you, and that's how you're able to do it. Um, but that's a really cool moment when all of a sudden it's like I am actually legitimately doing this on two different screens. I am somehow it's like patting my head and rubbing my stomach like these shouldn't work, but somehow I'm pulling this off. Um, but yeah, I would highly recommend at the beginning turning her to as quickly auto attacking without you controlling, and then I know it's hard because you don't have all the pins yet.
Yeah, the very beginning of the game kind of stinks because you only have you start out with only that fire pin and then you get like three or four more.
Yeah.
But as I've been unlocking slots and getting more pins, the game is getting much more fun because just like I think I mean this is a little speculative on my part since I'm not that far in. I think once the attack variety and the number of pins gets pretty high, the game opens up in a fun way because it the more pins I get, the more fun I have with tinkering.
Yeah, that's so. I can't remember the early pins. They level up, correct?
They do, but they
Okay.
a lot of them cap off after just one level, or
Okay.
at least several of them do.
Yeah, some of the pins go up to like level 8 or something like that.
Oh, all
Just
right.
you like you have to dump some time into them. Um, there's a lot of different possibilities, and it gets really interesting. And then you could definitely start playing off of your what your style is. Like, so what I was gonna recommend is try to have make the movement easier with Neku. Have attacks that shoot projectiles when you tap on the enemies or in the direction of the enemies, so that your stylus, for the most part, everything close to Neku then will control him. You don't have any of those accidental things where you're like clicking but you didn't mean to click, and then you're actively aiming towards the enemies. It just makes it definitely easier in the beginning. Um, but as it opens up, as you get more pins, as you get more abilities, you get. I think you might have a heal spell by now.
Yeah, you get a heal spell pretty early.
Okay.
Mhm.
But yeah, like you start having the heal spells. You start having cool powers where you're throwing cars and you're causing earthquakes and you're
The
bringing down lightning from the sky. And
the telekinesis throwing cars power is one of the ones. It's not the first one you get, but when Shiki gives you four, like after the third fight or something, that's one of the ones you get. And I had so much fun using that I started using it pretty extensively, just throwing cars and bikes and traffic cones at enemies. But then at one of the early boss battles, I think it was the one at the Hachiko statue.
Mhm.
Um, I had been I you only have two equipment slots at that time, so I did the throwing cars one and the heal spell, and there's no obstacles to throw for that boss battle. So
Ouch.
that was an instant loss that had to me regroup and realize I hadn't saved recently and
Yeah,
do
that's
some stuff.
rough.
But it was whatever. It wasn't that awful.
So I guess I
But
should
but
throw that caveat out. I said that I can't try to come back with like a fresh mind and fresh look at this. I am playing a new game plus. So
oh dude.
I have like 5 slots for my pins and my pins are ridiculous and but in all fairness, I've played the entire game locked as my characters at level 1.
Yeah, that's another interesting mechanic. I'm not doing that because I don't have a ton of confidence in my skills necessarily. But the game gives lets you set your level. You gain levels like normal, but it lets you set your level accordingly. And the lower your level is, obviously you have less health and deal less damage. But also the drop rates for special items and pins are better.
It's tremendously better, yeah.
So I'm not doing that because I'm having enough trouble just surviving difficult fights. But it seems that that the world ends with you rewards skill and in an interesting way, and also lets players customize their level of challenge and and other parts of the gameplay experience in an interesting way. One of my favorite recent games is Bravely Default, and that game let you set your own encounter and difficulty rates and
Mm.
experience rates, and that it was a total delight to me. So that the world ends with you gives you a nice trade-off between drops and experience and difficulty is I appreciate that very much, but I'm not doing your strategy. I need these levels just to survive.
Yeah, no, and it's one of those things. It's just the advantage. My pins are ridiculous. Like I will readily admit my pins are so overpowered. I have
I have the most basic bitch pins you've ever seen. This
yeah,
is
I have a heal pin that even if I was fully leveled and I had my max health, it would still take me from like 1 hit point all the way to max, and I'm allowed to use it 4 times per battle. And then I have like this lightning storm that just destroys everything. And so what I do is I think I have 5 slots. So I use 4 for like my just completely ridiculous spells, and my 5th one I just use to level up pins.
Oh, okay, sure.
Um, but yeah, so then what I do is I set myself to 1, which gets me massive bonuses. And then the other really cool thing, like where you're saying, like you can kind of customize your experience when you tap on the pin to see where the enemies are. You can multi-tap on multiple enemies, and the more enemies that you collect in one go, you get multipliers that make the battles don't get difficult, but you have to do them right after each other, and you get heavy, like much higher bonuses. And so
Mm.
I'll roll in level 1, and I'll click on like 7 enemies and just like do this one long battle, and I'll roll out of that with like 70,000. I guess it's probably yen, right, for the game.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
and then I'll just be like, all right, well, that's my grinding for the day, and then I'll just go and do the mission. I'm guessing you're not really in a position to be able to do that.
No, because I'm not doing a new game plus because this is the first time I've made it past the first 45 minutes of the game. Uh, but yeah, I think it's really cool that experience difficulty item drops trade off, and maybe later on when I have some leveled up pins and I'm more comfortable with the combat, that is something I'll try to do. But I mean, for the purpose of the podcast, I'm just going to try and get to the end of the
Right.
game.
Yeah, absolutely. So have you used the food system yet?
I have.
Okay, good.
It was some of the first stuff I spent money on, and I thought I mean, a lot of RPGs have food systems. Like I think even the first Tales of and Star Ocean games from the late '90s had food stuff, but this one they do food really in a really cool way this time. You have to you buy food at restaurants and you basically have to equip them, and while food is equipped, your character slowly eats it and digests it. And once they're finished digesting it, they get a permanent stat bonus. It is permanent, right?
Yes, it is permanent,
Yeah, okay. Yeah, because
and you can
I
only
bought
one.
I bought a bunch of the attack ramen in the first ramen shop, and just
Uh,
it's like all right, Neku, you're gonna be just eating ramen for the next couple days.
yeah, so it takes bites, BYTES,
Right?
because
Yeah.
let's be cool about it. Um, and those are slowly used up while you do battles.
See,
And then
it does not remotely make sense to me that I
no,
would buy a bowl of ramen and just have a bite of it after each physical activity.
every time I punch
No.
somebody, yeah,
Yeah,
uh,
no, that's not how you eat ramen. You're just gonna slurp that stuff up. Oh, I almost said a naughty word. You're just gonna slurp that up right away, and then you're gonna have an uncomfortable few hours digesting it.
yeah,
But yeah, but whatever. So like after you're done digesting the food, you get a permanent bonus,
right.
and food is also reasonably priced. Like I think the ramen stuff is like 500 or 800 yen,
Yeah,
or
it's
like in
not
that
bad at
range.
all.
So it's
Um,
yeah, I'm probably gonna spend too much money on food, just like real life.
but it caps you in a really interesting way because you can only fully digest a piece of food once per day,
Right. Yeah.
which kind of
Once per real day. Wait.
yeah,
Wait. In game day or 24
life
hour
day,
day. Yeah.
like real
That's what.
life day,
Yeah.
which
That's what I
really
thought, but I wasn't positive.
sucks for this podcast. 'Cause you're like, well, we have 30 days. I have 30 options of food for this if I'm actually going to legitimately play every day and remember to put food in. Instead of doing an attack,
Hasn't happened yet.
I would highly recommend you concentrate on food that improves your bravery. Because
Bravery.
if
Right.
you do the bravery, then you can do better items, and then that will in itself like increase your defense, your attack, and HP
Okay.
more than the food ever will be able to.
I haven't done a ton of ramen yet. Probably only 5 or 6 food stuffs. And
Foodstuffs.
is it worth giving anything to Shiki? Because I gave her one thing and then just focused on Neko after that.
So there is
Because I think now I haven't played this yet, but I'm pretty sure that your second character changes.
your so. Are you willing to let me just tell you the general premise of this?
Yeah, you'll go as don't go into story spoilers, but go ahead with general premise is fine.
There's 3 weeks of 7 days. Each week of those, each week you're with a different person.
Okay, sure. Mhm.
Um, with that, the great thing is your clothes. You can still go back and take those people like their clothes off and put it on the next person. So you don't have to worry about that. With Shiki, well, with both of them, there's a place. I can't remember what area of Tokyo it's in. For 80,000 yen.
Oh, it's is it? Oh, it's either Shinjuku or Akibahara. Oh, whatever. Keep going.
There's like this root thing that increases your bravery by 50. I
Oh,
I only buy those and I just put them on everybody.
all right. The bravery stat, it affects what how many things you can equip.
So that's basically like the to be able to put any of the clothes on, you have to pass a certain amount of bravery to be able to have it. Like that's the number one. It doesn't matter your level, doesn't matter any of that. It's only on your bravery.
Are you saying to wear more ridiculous clothes, you need to be braver?
Absolutely, you need to be fearless out there. Um, so
Especially with some of the ridiculous stuff these kids are wearing. Jeez.
yeah, and I had forgotten about this. I made the huge mistake with Neku. I did what you did with like the attack. Like I just attack, and just kind of coincidentally, I was like, well, I have these bravery items left. I'm gonna put them on Shiki, and Shiki's bravery is ridiculous. She can wear any item that I pick up, and because of that, she's still a terrible character, and I can't use her. But she has like the most powerful gear that I've ever picked up.
Hmm.
And that's this playthrough. I'm concentrating like everybody is getting bravery items so that I don't have to worry about that in the future. Because I just got a random drop of something that is it's absurd. It's like a potted plant. It's like I don't even know why this is a real thing, but it just the stat boost on it is tremendous, and I'll never be able to put that on Neku if I like just played regularly without like boosting his bravery. So that would be my recommendation. There's usually at least one item per place. Um, that you'll be able to get that. And then interesting thing with even shopping, you have to build up the rep with the salespeople to be able to find out what the special abilities are on both clothes and what the food will actually do for you, which I always
Yeah,
thought
the
was kind of
ramen dude
interesting.
loves me because I spent all my money on that on his noodles the first time I went there.
Yeah, which it's really it's an interesting thing, and I always like the comments that the salespeople have, like, oh, why are these kids in here? They can't afford anything, and then like it changes over time based on how much you buy from them. The interesting thing though is like you buy a piece of clothing, all the items that you buy have some sort of special ability. But even if you buy the item and you equip it and you use it a bunch, unless you build up the rep with that the salesperson, you still won't get that special ability. And
Yeah,
so
I mean,
it's kind of weird because it's like, well, I have it, like it's there, like I don't know why I need to talk to this person because I already have the item. But it does. They're really pushing for you to try to get like 100% on everything. I think. Um,
I well, I don't know if I'm gonna get close to 100%
you're not gonna get close to 100%. I'm not close to 100%.
Okay, well, the rep stuff and store stuff is interesting. It almost makes it seem like a like a big Western style open world game where shopkeepers will remember everything that where you have like a relationship meter with every person,
Right.
and that's nice. Like it was a little overwhelming at first because I don't think you don't get to go into stores. I think on until day 3 maybe. And suddenly it's like, oh crap! There's a bunch of stores here. I can't afford anything, and the shopkeepers are being standoffish because this is my first time in here. A little too much like real life that way. But but it's neat, and I can sort of see how like I don't know how deep it goes, but I can sort of see the bottom of the pool a little bit, even being outside of it, and it's interesting to me. But I'm not sure how deeply I'm going to engage with that because I'm still so early in the game and don't have enough money to do anything fun.
One of the great things is you don't actually have to engage with it. If you pull up your phone and it shows like your meters of your like completion for everything.
Hmm.
Um, Through this playthrough, I still with like items and clothing, I was like a rank E or F or something, like something really low. So I've played through it multiple times and never really engaged in the clothes system. So it's there if you want to use it. I always bought food, and I bought every pin. I have so many pins, it's ridiculous. But the clothing I always just kind of like ignored. So I mean, it's there, but it's not completely necessary, which is, I guess is nice. 'Cause it is overwhelming because you're like, well, I have to go to this place. I think that logo was a bear. Where's that bear?
Yeah,
Right?
the quest design in this game doesn't really it's so insubstantial. They'll tell you a riddle or something, but then they'll just tell you where to go anyway.
Yeah.
So it's it's not like say a Dragon Quest game where you actually do have to figure out something on your own. But it's not quite an Ubisoft game where they'll just give you an arrow exactly where you have to go. I don't know. It's to where we might even just be a little better off not trying to be mysterious and just telling you where you need to go.
Puzzles are really easy, and almost to its detriment
I don't
because
even know
like
if they count as puzzles.
you get to Hachiko and you're like, there's a ginormous smudge mark on this thing. Let's rub it. You're like, oh, it's touchscreen. Like, I had forgotten about this too. So I'm just sitting there just rubbing it. It's like I know I have to rub it. Like
No,
that's how I move on.
you have to go and someone has to tell you, hey, maybe rub it before
Yep.
you do that.
Yeah. Like not that you can't visually see it. You have to have somebody tell you that there's something there. It's like, well, this is kind of.
No, really, it's just you got to play phone tag with NPCs like in a lot
Yeah.
of RPGs before you can hit the next plot points. It's dumb event like RPGs have had dumb event flagging since forever.
Yeah.
So I think I I like this game better than I did a few years ago because I'm giving it a chance and playing it playing it through, and I'm more comfortable with the combat. I still don't love it, and part of it is because I just think the game is trying so hard to be cool, and I just think it's making bad design choices, like visually. Like all of the characters looks dumb to me. I don't give a hot damn at all about Akibahara cool and Japanese gaudy fashion and things that this game sort of like hangs its hat on as major visual themes. And whatever, I'm forcing myself to do these to go to the stores and like engage in these clothing systems, even though it's not a kind of thing I'm interested in at all normally.
Yeah, and I can respect that. I think. Well, I know the reason that I'm not all for it either. I like there's zippers everywhere. It's Nomura'd out to the max. Like they just let them go crazy with this.
Okay, well, yeah, I get it, and I mean, a lot of people are into this visual style, but none of it really resonates with me. Just the weird colors. Like one of the Reapers that you meet early on is wearing a shirt that goes down into a skirt and forms into full length sleeves and gloves in one piece, and she's wearing a corset over it. So it's like, what on earth? Like, what is anyone wearing in this game?
But I find it refreshing. Like you can say
You
whatever
find
you
it
want. Like,
refreshing that people are just dressed in the most impractical, hideous clothes imaginable.
but let's be honest. Every game now involves crystals, dragons, and magic. Like
Not
that's
many games do.
and if we're not gonna do that, we're gonna do Space Marines. Like we had the whole joke during like the 360 and PS3 era that like 90% of the games were like an angry white man that had a shaved head staring at me on the cover. Like it's massively over the top,
Well, I mean,
but it definitely has.
so you're saying that there's no other RPGs that star spiky haired Japanese teenage boys dressed in ridiculous clothes?
I'm not saying that. I find I really this is the reason I like Persona 2. Persona as well. I don't actually like Persona 2 because I've never played it.
Persona 2 is good. Persona 1 is a tire fire. Okay, keep going.
But the great thing about the Persona games, and one of the great things about The World Ends With You, is there is a pseudo grounding in the real world. There is a semblance of real life or real society, and then you have the fantastic on top of it.
Yeah, I did get a serious Persona vibe from The World Ends With You, mostly from the music, which is a lot of weird Japanese pop and hip hop.
I legitimately love the music in this game.
And it also sort of reminds me of Earthbound, just because of the weird chipset that has a lot of like record scratches and synth and funky synth brass. It's an interesting soundtrack, and it is trying to be modern or at least a little true to life with its urban setting and urban influenced music. And I do appreciate that. I just think that its whole aesthetic of you know ridiculous Japanese teen fashion is stupid.
Right.
And collecting pins and stickers is another side of that. I like accessories. I'm not an expert, but I think accessorizing like that is sort of an aspect of cool Japanese kids buying expensive clothes.
And that's the best part is I'm not even sure if it's actually Japanese, but it plays on every stereotype of what an American expects, like a
Yeah,
Japanese teen to be doing.
yeah, it does. I'm probably being culturally insensitive with all these
No, but
assumptions I'm making.
I feel like there is at some point they're like, you know what, we're gonna do the whole like this is what Americans expect us to be doing.
Or not even Americans, maybe just the whole world that
Yeah,
sometimes views Japan as a bizarre place.
because of course a 15 or 16-year-old is gonna be walking around with a stuffed animal, right? Like it's Japan, of course that's what happens. Um,
Or at least, if not Japan, at least Akibahara. Akibahara, is that the right place?
I'm not even gonna correct you. This is fantastic.
I know. I think that's the district that has a lot of like anime and game stuff in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I'm not
I'm
an
sure Steven will correct us.
I'm sure that probably 70% of our listenership could correct us.
But yeah, I get what you're saying. It's a funky aesthetic. But I think they completely own it. They went all the way with it. They did not half-ass it whatsoever. And I find it refreshing. I love the music. I actually like the colors. I like the kind of mix of graffiti that kind of gets put in at some point. I would never wear the clothes because I'd look ridiculous. But I like the clothes.
I think you could rock Shiki's like weird Daisy Dukes that show her hip bones.
That's because I got baller hip bones.
Yep.
But I don't know. I like if it even now, and this is almost a decade later, it feels refreshing. And there's not a lot of games that kind of do that setting, do that view of the world and interacting with the world. But I think this also goes back to what we were saying towards the beginning of the podcast. It's not its best foot forward. Like it concentrates on all this, and it kind of smacks you in the face with it, and either that works or it doesn't for you. And if it doesn't work for you, you're kind of screwed because that's all that's there at the beginning. And I think you'll agree as we move on. This switches from hey, this is Japanese, hey, this is zippers and pins to this is a absolute character story.
Okay, all right. So it eventually becomes a character story and not just Neku, the Japanese misanthrope, and Shiki, the girl that tries really hard.
Well, so you got to the end of day, or you got to day 7. You already started to see little bits and pieces of that with Shiki admitting that she was super jealous of her best friend, and
Yes.
that's not how she actually looks.
Yeah, and she's like borrowing her best friend's appearance.
Yes, yeah, that was her entry fee was her appearance, and so
Yeah.
she took on her friends.
And it's sort of funny when like they hinted that a little bit earlier on in day 2 or day 3 when you see her phone
Right.
background screen. It's her and then a second girl that's sort of obscured a little bit. It's like
There's a glare.
it's like oh she's the other girl.
Yep.
Who's I guess a little plainer looking.
Yeah, and then so I actually have to ask this: were you kind of? It was one of those like WTF moments when you saw Shiki standing like 10 feet away from you, or did you figure it out by then?
Um, I no, I hadn't quite figured it out. It was uh I'm not really remembering the part that you're telling
So
me.
it's while you're going around trying to get the make the pin really popular for the commercial that's going to be going on,
Right, okay.
and you're wandering around and all like you're talking to Shiki, and all of a sudden like you look over her shoulder and like, why are you standing over there as well?
Yeah, okay.
Um, so that's kind of the least interesting of the reveals that moves forward with the characters, and like you've already seen it as Neku. Neku was a dick. I
Yeah.
forgot how much of a dick he was.
Yeah, no, he's a total jerk. Like I said, he was basically a misanthrope. He's like it was just it's just been explained to him that if he doesn't team up with someone to be able to fight noise in both zones, that he will die or be erased.
He just
But-
walks away.
And he walks away in the middle of the conversation. He does not want anything to do with another person, even though he will literally be deleted from reality if he doesn't at least begrudgingly work with Shiki. He's totally unreasonable. Like I understand of being a loner or just not liking not liking social interactions or whatever, but he is just rejecting it wholesale, even though it will literally kill him.
Yeah.
And Shiki is very eager to partner up with him. Uh, Maybe because she's just has a sort of an aggressively social personality, and also she understands that she needs to do this to survive. But just watching them on opposite ends of the spectrum interacting in the first couple days
It's
was, yeah,
painful.
it really is painful watching both of them. And I think Neku's probably worse than Shiki, but it did not immediately endear me to either of them.
And that's the problem is they're so over the top at the beginning. I had
Are you
honestly
saying I have
forgotten.
to play a couple hours before it gets good, Josh? Is that what you're
No,
saying?
so first of all, Neku has a fantastic moment because it's like after day one or day two when he like force chokes Shiki. That thing is fantastic. Um, like I still like that is one of the coolest things. Um, but yeah, it's just I he's not a good character at the beginning. Um, but there's reasoning that comes out about why he's like that at the beginning. There's reasoning of what his entry fee was for it. That's kind of it seems very confusing at the beginning, and when it's eventually explained. And you even see it during the first week, like his personality has changed. There's moments that he's legitimately distressed that Shiki's not around. He takes Rhyme dying or being erased really
Right.
poorly. He tries to like put on this face like he doesn't care, but like you can tell that legitimately affected him. Um, the cliffhanger that's about to happen at the end of the day seven, which I won't ruin because you haven't gotten there.
Okay.
Like that's that's one of those like he basically wakes up the next week and he appears to be a different person, like a different character. Because the events that these events start making their mark on him, and that's maybe it's because he's such a terrible character at the beginning. He's one of the characters that I see that I've ever played in a game that has the most character growth over the story arc.
I
Um,
I get that. One of my favorite PS2 RPGs is Tales of the Abyss. And at the beginning of Tales of the Abyss, the main character Luke is a whiny brat that is just insufferable, and the other characters don't like him. He's the player is not made to sympathize or like him much at all. But because he undergoes meaningful growth throughout the course of the game, by the end he is a likable character, and his character arc is really really obvious. It's the changes that have he's made are clear, cool changes. And if Neku's arc ends up being sort of like that, I mean, I get it. I see how it might be framed like that, but I mean that doesn't make me like him anymore now. When
no,
I
it does not help you right now at
yeah
all.
yeah right, like telling me, oh, he gets better later is not helpful for me in the present.
No, and that
but
and that that is one of those where
I
you're
do
like,
yeah, but I do understand how this could be a good, satisfying character bit overall. But right now, it's not the case.
we're gonna keep coming back to this. It does not put the best foot forward. They lay a lot of groundwork that doesn't seem like groundwork at the beginning of the game that eventually becomes stuff that it's fantastic. Like there's a lot there. It's very very interesting. There's some unique twists. There's really good reasonings for things, but then and that's why like coming in like trying to have like a fresh perspective on it when I came in is like I get why Mike didn't like this. Like this is annoying. This is hard. This is unwieldy. Neku's a dick. Shiki's just annoying. Beat's just being an idiot. Sorry. Like
Uh,
I don't like Beat. Like he was like what do you
he's another guy that does not endear
no
self to you in the beginning.
yeah and it's the characters because they set them up to be all flawed characters and whereas like Persona where they seem fine you reach this kind of arbitrary like there's a flaw they need to conquer it and then they become better characters afterwards at least you liked them beforehand because you had an hour 5-10 hours of experience them one way before this.
Hmm.
And this, they start off already in that crisis moment, so they're already characters that are not at their best, so they don't come in a favorable light to you. So you're like, I don't care about you. Like I'd like for you to be interesting, but right now you're not that great of a character. And if you're not willing to stick through to see the end of the first week or the end of the second week, you're never going to see that progression, and you're never going to get that payoff. And so I can totally see why you would have stopped after 45 minutes. Like, no, this isn't. There's too many other good games. Like, I'm going to stop. I'm coming around to your way, but it sounds like overall you're slowly coming over to liking this game.
I wouldn't say that yet. I'm basically just using self-discipline with the knowledge that well, not with the knowledge. I pledge to play this game for this podcast, and I am going to self-discipline myself to actually do that. I won't say I like the game yet. It's a lot of the things that frustrated me about it 6 years ago are still there, and I can see how this could get better, and once I'm deeper in, it is better. But it hasn't happened yet. Hopefully it will soon. But I'm not gonna say I've turned the corner on it yet. Well, I'll get back to you in a week or two about that.
Yeah, I'm expecting a full. You're gonna be on
You're
this
expecting a full.
podcast.
You're expecting a full turn.
Yeah. Oh, you're gonna be so excited for the next recording.
It's gonna be on my personal top 20 by the time the month is over.
And this is perfect because we're rolling into a special feature that we're doing in May, and this is on my list for that special feature. I'm going to talk really cryptically so that everybody that listens has no idea what we're talking about.
And that is
And I'm
that.
going to gain your support for this game.
All right. Well, we'll see. And also cryptically, part of why I am playing this game is because of that feature. Because I resolved to play a game from different people's lists, but I'm not going to get more into it than that. and also this that feature does fit in with something that RPG Fan is doing, like the website, none of the podcasts. But that's for another day.
Wow, there's so many like little clues out there now.
Yeah, all these podcast detectives are out there taking notes and going and hitting the 10 seconds back button just to clarify things.
I feel really bad for that person that they have to listen to us that much.
So
that, yeah, I was just
with you.
I think that does it for the first recording. We're gonna come back episode 2. We kind of did the mechanics of the game to start off for this first podcast. The second one was going to be very, 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 extremely, very plot heavy.
Yeah, well, I think that because we talked about like the setting and characters and so much and the mechanics this time, the next one will be all about plot, ending stuff, overall impressions, and how the characters ended up, I think.
Yeah, we're going to be able to talk about the character arcs. We'll be able to talk about how the Reapers interact, the general game as well. We didn't really touch on the game, which it is actually really fascinating idea of people dying and then getting a chance to earn their way back to being able to be alive. Like I said, this game just has a lot of character in that regard. But that'll all be touched on in the second episode. And more importantly, we'll get to listen to Mike talk about how this is one of his favorite games of all time then.
Sure. Okay.
In the meantime, just some housekeeping. After we're done with The World Ends With You, we're moving on to The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. And then the month after that, we're doing Xenogears.
Oh, we're saying our games 2 months in advance now?
Well, we put Xenogears on Twitter.
Right. Oh, right. Yeah, you did a Twitter vote for the first time to determine the game. Mm-hmm.
And people got really into it.
So yeah, Majora's Mask in May and Xenogears in June. Those are two much beloved late 90s, early 2000s masterpieces.
Yeah, and it means that I actually have to finish the Zelda game, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah, you picked a doozy of one to be your first, because I haven't finished Majora's Mask, but it's not like any other Zelda game, dude.
Yeah, I'm not. So I will readily admit this. I'm gonna probably say this on the next or on the Zelda podcast as well. I am legitimately not happy that it's my first Zelda game. I mean, it's not my first. I've played a bunch of other Zelda games.
Yeah, you were just telling me about how much you liked Phantom Hourglass before we started recording this.
Oh, we did it during the recording.
Yeah, oh, we did? Oh, my bad.
But I've just never. The Phantom Hourglass, I made it like half, 3/4 the way through, and that's the farthest I've ever made in a Zelda game. And so at least I've experienced Zelda-like games and Zelda games, but I don't know. It's so different. Maybe that'll be enough that I get really excited to go through it. But at the same time, it's kind of disappointing. I know everybody says really good things about Majora's Mask, but it's kind of disappointing. Like, that's going to be my first one. I don't know. We'll see.
I mean, I've been playing Zelda games for decades. My first one was Link's Awakening on the Game Boy, and I love that game. And my most recent one was when I played when I played A Link Between Worlds 2 years ago, and that game was awesome. It's definitely my favorite 3DS game. So like Zelda has had a lot of good games over the past 30 years, and you're picking a really interesting one to play for the podcast.
That's
In Majora's Mask.
I had wanted to play A Link Between Worlds or Ocarina of Time.
A Link Between Worlds is awesome. I love that game.
Those had been the two games that I wanted to. Ocarina of Time, because everybody just always says that should be your first one. But then Link Between Worlds is the one
I think Link to the Past is the best possible first Zelda.
Right. I agree with that, and I think Link Between Worlds is the modern equivalent of it, so it just makes it easier to be able to play and find.
It's more than just a modern equivalent. It's straight up sequel and homage. It's I think playing those two back to back there's a lot of recycled ideas, but it's a really good experience. Well, whatever. You're playing Majora's Mask in a few weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll get to that. And that will also help with our feature, to be more cryptic about our features. But in the meantime, you can send emails to retro@rpgfan.com. As always, you can go to the boards at rpgfan.com and give your comments, advice, recommend games. You can also do that through iTunes, where we'd love for you guys to go on and give your 5-star reviews.
What's your Twitter handle, Josh, in case people want to vote for games in the future?
So on Twitter, I am at JD Curry. That's JDCURRY. That is honestly the easiest way to get a hold of me. I am constantly writing stuff, like little tidbits about what we're doing, and also dropping hints of what we are going to do for the podcast. And because of people's feedback and people sending me messages from there, we have actually done episodes in the past because of what they had recommended. So that is honestly the best way to try to get involved beyond all the other stuff that I just listed. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm also on Twitter at The Real Monsoon, TheRealMonSoon, and whenever Josh posts about some Retro Encounter thing, I usually favorite or retweet it. So
get those likes.
You gotta get those likes. I'm not a great Twitter follow unless you like RPGs and NBA basketball, but yeah, I'm there too.
I'm fantastic if you want me to go on long rants where I argue with people about how bad I think Final Fantasy VII the remake's going to be, or my continual hate for amiibos. So
yeah,
it's a place to be.
But how's your amiibo collection doing, Josh? How many shelves does it take up now?
I have that one that you sent me.
Okay, all right. That's a good start.
He's on my desk staring at me at the moment. So.
Well, that's not creepy at all.
Well, he has about as much value as a normal amiibo, so good job, Pikachu.
All right, so are we good?
We got to get my complaints in about amiibo, so I think that's a great way to end Retro Encounter. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll be back in a couple weeks with another exciting episode.
Bye, everybody.
Just like this, I know your smile, your voice, just like that. You talk to me and I smile right back. I don't believe in fantasy. Same dress, same smell reminds me something I can't forget. Same song, same tone in your voice. Tell me this, is it a dream?